everybody. Welcome to the Fundamental Analysis webinar here with AvaTrade. My name is Troy. I'll be presenting. As we get started, just keep in mind, as always, that there's risk involved with each trade that you take. So you want to make sure you're managing risk in a way that makes sense for you while you're going after, obviously, the potential profits. And our order window will help you in calculating both potential profits and risks within our web trader and app order window. So we'll go over maybe some ideas in that regard if we find some trades that look interesting to pursue. Within the session, we'll go through the risk management side of things as well within the order window. And also keep in mind that what we go over is not meant to be financial advisement, but is coming from an educational perspective. Now, from our main website, we can log into our web trader platform, which offers the same functionalities as the AvaTrade app, allowing you to trade on both MT4 and MT5 accounts from the same location, but with the advanced functionalities that are offered by AvaTrade. So if we log in here in the upper right-hand corner, we'll find ourselves in our web trader. And as we get started, we'll look at some specific announcements on the economic calendar, but I think it makes sense first to talk about the big headlines that occurred really in the last 24 hours. One being NVIDIA had their quarterly results. They released them after the US market closed yesterday evening, and what we saw was what was expected. It's become pretty commonplace that NVIDIA not only reaches expectations, but exceeds the expected numbers for earnings and revenue, which they once again did. Maybe the outlook, in terms of growth isn't as much as, some were hoping, but still there's an expectation of quite a bit of growth for the company. Many analysts are even saying that even at the current price, NVIDIA stock is undervalued, if you can believe that, after all the growth in stock price that it's already had. It's pretty much fully recovered from the pullback with the tariff scare, and a lot of the tech sector has recovered quite a bit from that. Maybe not as well as NVIDIA has, but we'll see. We'll actually look at maybe some headlines on NVIDIA as well, and the technical predictions for what is expected to potentially happen moving forward. But it's overall a positive storyline, not just for NVIDIA, but for the whole tech sector. If you're trading the US 100 or any of the large tech companies, they're all kind of riding the wave of momentum from the NVIDIA positive earnings results from yesterday. Now, coupled with that is another, depending how you look at it, good news story. There's a 3-judge panel at the district level in the U.S. court system that has at least temporarily blocked most of the Trump tariffs, stating that he overstepped his bounds, that he didn't have the authority to impose tariffs without Congress enacting it, et cetera, et cetera. And so a lot of the tariffs are on pause, and we saw a big jump in the Asian markets as a response to that, because obviously China in particular really got hit with some high tariffs, and temporarily anyways, most of those tariffs are gone for now. So there's a lot of rejoicing in the markets in that regard. Now, I would caution you with trading too much on that momentum or reading too much into it, because immediately the Trump administration is appealing it to the Supreme Court, and we've seen other cases that were decided at the district level or lower level courts overturned by the Supreme Court in the Trump administration favor already. Not everything, but some of them. So we'll see what happens with that, but at least temporarily, there's positive news there, and maybe some hope by the markets that some of these tariffs maybe won't come back. But I say it's positive news, maybe for the market, maybe not positive news for the bigger picture of the economic plan of the Trump administration, but we'll see how all of that falls out in the coming weeks and months. Now, with that as a backdrop, you can understand that if you look at the futures right now on the major indices, pretty much globally, they're all in the green. Okay, everything seems to be trying to rise with some pretty good momentum. But one thing you'll notice is that the volatility index is still up today, last I looked, which means there's still some fear out there. Typically, the volatility index rises when traders in the futures market are hedging themselves with short futures contracts, which means they're covering their long positions with short futures contracts on future months. And so the volatility index being up shows that not everybody is sold on the positive momentum, although at least temporarily it is there right now on the S&P 500, Dow Jones, DAX, FTSE, etc. Okay, so with that as a backdrop, then we go ahead and take a look at some specific information. And one place we can go is to the market buzz, and we'll get to the economic calendar as well. Within the market buzz, if you haven't used it before, you can search specific instruments in the search up here, or you can just look at the pictogram in the different categories. Right now I'm in the stocks. We can go to the other categories, indices, commodities, currencies, cryptos, and the larger the circle in the pictogram, the more the instrument is trending online. It doesn't mean the other ones aren't nice to look at and trade, but you'll find more recent news on the larger circles. And so obviously NVIDIA is the largest one here. It makes sense why. Their earnings came out. They're kind of leading the market right now. You know, if you weren't aware of what was going on with NVIDIA, you still could use this tool and find out pretty quick. So and that goes for any instrument that you might be interested in trading on. It makes sense. Check the most recent fundamental news, then make your decision. Even if you're a technical trader and you're using your indicators and your support and resistance lines and you're trading off the technical movements, it still makes sense to check what's the most recent information on whatever it is you're about to trade on from a fundamental perspective as well. And that can maybe inform you as to what direction you might prefer to find a technical movement. Now, the trend analysis is here. For those of you who like to look at the technicals, the expectation with the trend analysis is that NVIDIA could rise another 14.5% in the coming days or weeks. If we look at the chart, we can see the signal here predicting a rise up to the 150 mark or so, where they're suggesting you might take profit because that's where we find resistance on the chart from back in time. Okay, so the expectation is it's going to break past this resistance and head up to the next level near 150. Okay, the first resistance is where they're suggesting you might first think about taking profit, which is right here, this first green line around 144, 145. Okay, so somewhere in that zone is the technical prediction. And you can look at the indicators that were used in the important price levels. They're all described in the technical signal. The fundamentals we just talked about. So the fundamentals happen to align with that signal. Both the macro fundamental news about tariffs, at least temporarily being removed, which really affects the tech sector a lot, in this case in a positive way. And then also the specific information about NVIDIA itself, and you can quickly see the headlines. European stocks gain on trade share. NVIDIA outlook boosts tech. Okay, obviously, if you click this link, you're going to see some positive news if you read the article about NVIDIA. Okay, they're already telling you in the headline it's raising not only US stocks, but European stocks. Tech in general is rising. And so you can see the entire article or snippets of the articles and the source that they came from by following these links. Here's another one. NVIDIA and CEO Jensen Huang get a pass for an earnings whiff, what Wall Street is saying. It's interesting that some have a take on NVIDIA's numbers when they come in better than expected, which they did. There was expected to be an increase in revenue and in earnings, and there was, and the increase was larger than the expected numbers, but still this article is referring to the numbers as being an earnings whiff, basically saying they missed the mark of what some people thought they should have brought in. And so that's how strong of a company it is. It exceeds the expected numbers, and some still say that they whiffed on the earnings. but they're saying that the market is giving them a pass, meaning the response has been positive. There's not a negative response to the fact that this particular article thinks that the earnings were quote unquote a whiff. So in general, a neutral article or somewhat positive, and this article is quite positive. If we move on, U.S. stock futures climb as federal court rules against Trump tariffs. That leads in the positive direction, especially as these articles are mentioning in the tech sector. Stock markets soar as U.S. court blocks Trump tariffs and NVIDIA beats estimates. Okay, well, that's a better headline for NVIDIA. At least it mentions they beat the estimates and not just saying they whiffed on their numbers. That's why you want to read multiple sources. The one headline might make you think, oh, it was bad news. It says NVIDIA whiffed on their earnings. And the two other headlines say, hey, they beat expectations and the markets are responding positively. So you need to read from multiple sources, which doesn't take long when you're using this tool, the Market Buzz. You can find the most recent articles right away. And here, NVIDIA soars after earnings. That sounds pretty positive to me. If you go ahead and read the article, that might convince you that indeed you might want to follow this signal once you read a few articles and go after potentially the price point that they're suggesting within this signal, which was around up to as much as 150 per share. There, this time it loaded. Between 144, 150, somewhere in that range is the expected signal here. And so the point of this tool and of the strategy I'm showing you is compare the most recent headlines and news about whatever it is you're interested in trading on. Read a few articles and see, is it positive news or is it negative? And then combine that with the technical analysis and the overall sentiment of the day, which today all are pointing in the same direction. And maybe that tells you whether you want to trade on the instrument or not. In this case, if the market opens in the US and you see a nice entry point for NVIDIA, then maybe you go ahead and make that move because the fundamental news and the technicals are kind of backing that up together, okay? And sometimes you look and it's conflicting. You'll see a signal here that says, okay, maybe it's going to go up and maybe you should buy, but then you read the recent headlines and they're all negative. Then you say, okay, maybe the technical signal is not in alignment with the most recent news and you pass on that trade, okay? And you can kind of qualify the signals that are coming in from Trading Central into our platform and app and decide for yourself based on the most recent fundamental news, do I want to trade on that signal or not? Okay, and the sentiment of the day being positive, the headlines being positive, and now the signal saying buy, kind of all are in alignment for NVIDIA right now. So now it's just a question of when the market opens, check if there's any recent headlines right when the market opens that would work against you. If not, you look for your entry point and see if you can capitalize on the current momentum. Now, what else could we look at? Really, any major index right now is feeding pretty strongly off what we already talked about, the NVIDIA news and the tariffs being at least temporarily blocked by the US court system. So as we look at the major indices, we can see indeed they're climbing. Okay, I'm on the one-day candles. So let's pull back and go to something smaller. I'm on the 1 hour candles, and what we see is this huge rush up, which was the initial response to the both NVIDIA results and the court decision in the US. We see it stabilized and now is in a spot where it's pulling back, okay? And so the energy has run out and now we have a pullback. So what could you look for if you feel the fundamental news says buy right now on US 500 or the NASDAQ, etc.? You could start to look for entry points that you see a current downtrend. So maybe you look for the first support level, which might be here. Why would I say this is a support level? Because it was a resistance level here before it got the big news and broke through that resistance. You see this is a true breakthrough candle. Okay, it breaks the resistance with momentum and carries up significantly further. It's what we call a breakthrough candle that broke this resistance level here. And so now we see a pullback, which often happens after such a rapid rise. Then the sellers come in, but those that were so excited about the news that caused this rise eventually could get back in near this inflection point potentially. Okay, so a pending order here to buy could make sense. We also could look at the NASDAQ because, as we said, the tech sector seems to respond the strongest, and look at that gap. Okay, the US 500 went up strong, but without that big gap. Look what the NASDAQ did. Look at the huge gap on this movement, and it's because of the excitement about NVIDIA and also the tariffs combined. So same thing, I'd be looking maybe if this is pulling back right now as we head towards some economic announcements in the US, if you don't like this entry point, which I kind of don't right now, I think this could try to pull back towards a support level that might make sense to try and buy from them. Okay, if indeed you think you should buy with that fundamental news, then you might be patient, and one option would be to wait for the movement to reapproach this breakthrough point here within this area of the old resistance, which, if this does come down, could act as support right here near the bottom of this gap. Okay, many times once a movement enters a gap like you see here on the chart, it fills the gap or tries to before going back up. Okay, not always, but from a technical perspective, many times we see gaps get refilled like that. So what if you wanted to buy, but you want to buy only if it pulls back down towards this support level down here, this old resistance? So then what we do is a pending order. We say execute when price hits. The directionality is determined by the fundamental news. In this case, we're saying makes sense maybe to buy with all the positive sentiment about the tariffs being pulled back and about the positive NVIDIA results. But maybe you say, I'd rather get a better price before getting in, so you do a pending order. Execute when price hits. If it comes down to 21,575, that would be near this support level. So let's take a look then. I still have the US 500 order window open. Let's get the right one. Here's the US Tech 100, execute when price hits. So 21,574. Or 575. And so what I'm looking at then with an entry point right above this line, just before the old resistance, near the bottom of this gap, hoping it pulls back for a better price. Take profit then could be back up at today's high without having to break the high. That would act as a natural resistance up here before finding potentially more momentum to break this high. So could make sense to take profit without having to break this high. So around 21,850. $21,850 gets out without having to break this high up here. And stop loss, if it comes down and bounces off this support, we should be up and running. If it breaks through the support, we have to decide, well, where would my stop loss need to be? And I think if we get down below this support level, where we saw yesterday it found support, 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 it broke below, but right back up. So this was an area where it took some momentum to try and spike down, but then gapped right up. So if it goes below this gap and then breaks this support level here, then to me, there's enough downward momentum, technically speaking, that I might give up on my buy position. So if this comes down below 21,418, so let's say 21,415, from a technical perspective, it would have started a downtrend. And so then it might make sense to me at 21,415 to take that small loss and walk from the move. So 21,415 would be the stop loss right down there, just below that line. So, and take profit being up just before this line. Entry point here. So we've got a better potential profit than possible loss. Not quite 2 to 1, but nearing that ratio. Now we need to adjust the trade size to be the amount of risk that makes sense for you. So let's say I wanted to risk about 1% of my account, and you can risk the amount that makes sense for you, whether it's 1%, 0.5%, 2%, or some flat dollar amount. If I do 0.05, I'm risking 800. 0.04, I'm risking 640. So probably 0.03 is going to be the sweet spot. I'm risking under 1%. 1% would be about 550 on the account. I'm well under that at 480, so I'm risking less than 1% to try and make about 1.5% on the account, 825. So if I like the setup in terms of risk reward and the technical setup, trying to enter just before the bottom of this gap at this old resistance level and taking profit before the high today, stop loss down below a couple support levels. If I like the setup, then I'm ready to go. And maybe I decide as I look at this that I want my stop loss a little lower. I want it significantly below this support level so that I can see a space. So it really has to break that support to hit my stop loss. So then I'm looking at 21,389 or 21,390 approximately. So I can play around with this before I set the trade off. And now I look and I say, okay, that's closer to 1%, 550, 555. So maybe I'm comfortable with this setup, risking almost exactly 1% to go after over 1%, near 1.5%. So once I get it set the way I like it and I am happy with the risk reward, now I can go ahead and enact the pending order. And we'll see that this is not a live trade yet because it's a pending order. So it's listed over here under orders. And you'll see if it hits the strike price, the trigger price, then it will open. This is the price that will trigger the trade to be opened. And then we would see it listed in the positions at that point. It would be an open position. Okay, so we've got one set up here on the NASDAQ that's based on a couple different things. We chose the NASDAQ over the US 500 because it's tech heavy. The NASDAQ being tech heavy might respond even stronger to the positive NVIDIA results and also to the tariffs, which really affected the tech industry. I think the largest in some respects. Those two storylines could work in the favor of a buy position there in the NASDAQ, assuming the headlines don't change in the next few hours, which obviously they could, which is why then we have risk management built into the trade in case the fundamentals change, which can change in an instant with a headline, right? So we do our best to read the tea leaves as they are now, positive momentum for the tech sector, and then we try and trade with the technicals set up in a way that makes sense in that direction. Okay. All right. So what else can we look at? How about the economic calendar? We'll take a little bit of time. We'll look at a different type of strategy, not trading off the headlines and not trading off the overall sentiment, which is what we did with that first move, but looking more at specific economic announcements that are coming in. And we'll pick the calendar for just today, starting out. And you see above this red line, the announcements already happened. Below the red line, they have not happened yet. We're looking at the previous numbers here, the forecast here, the prediction of what they will be today, and the actual numbers here. And so these don't have actual numbers yet because the announcements didn't happen yet. So the next slew of announcements is coming out of the US. The European, UK announcements and Asian announcements were earlier in the day. So if we focus on the upcoming US announcements and in particular look at the high level announcements, those are the ones that are rated to have the highest effect on volatility on the charts, okay, to maybe predict movement off of these. And if we look at the GDP growth rate, it's expected to drop into the negative territory. Boy, that probably wouldn't be good news for the US market if the GDP growth rate all of a sudden plunges into the negative. And that's the expectation. So you want to be careful with any trades like we set up the US 100 pending order that we just did. If these numbers come in as bad as expected or worse than expected, that could have a negative effect on that trade. Okay, so you keep in mind the upcoming news, but this actually could help pull the price down to the price point that we're looking for in that pending order as well. So it could work in your favor, and slightly negative GDP doesn't erase the positive news about NVIDIA and specifically the tariff pause as well. So, but it's something to keep in mind, and that's why we protect our trades. In the case of the trade we just simulated, with a stop loss with minimal risk. Okay, so now let's look at the GDP growth rate. If this comes in better than expected, that'll work in the favor of maybe the trade that we simulated there, that pending order, if indeed it does get triggered first. So as we look at this, then we can put any currency pairing we want paired with this announcement. I'll leave it on Euro USD, and then we can pick different time frames after that announcement to look, and we can look at what happened the last times that this announcement came in. How did the currency pair move? And so we can put any USD currency pairing that's listed here. And if I say, okay, if this came in above forecast, better than expected, which I kind of feel it could, because the expectation is so bad that it's going to be in negative territory when last time it was positive 2.4. So if this even comes in at positive 0.5 or anything like that, then that would be better than expected. And if this comes in above forecast, what we see in the past, it's only happened once in the past few quarters. What we're looking at is the USD strengthened and pulled the euro down about 38 pips, almost 40 pips in the 4 hours following. Okay, so what happens if it does come in below forecast? Well, then that's only happened once as well. And the euro went up then. That makes sense. In my mind and in your mind, it probably makes sense. If the GDP growth rate in the US is worse than expected, below forecast, then the euro goes up against the USD. And if it comes in better than expected, then the USD pulls the euro down. In the downward movement, nearly 40 pips. In the upward movement, just over 30 pips. Okay, pretty significant moves in a few hours after these numbers come in. And if we look, if it comes in matching the forecast, then that kind of makes sense too. It went up once, it went down once. It's not predictable from a statistical perspective. If the fundamental news matches the expectation, it's kind of what you'd expect to see. One up, one down, that doesn't seem predictable, 50-50. You almost have to flip a coin to decide which way you think it'll go when it matches the forecast. Now, I might lean towards the USD weakening if it matches the forecast because the forecast is so negative. But in general, it's not really tradable with statistics here. If we look at different time frames, maybe, if we say this comes in above forecast after 4 hours, it's down. In the first 5 minutes, it's down but less. So it's not like you don't have time to place the trade, is what we see here. So in the first 5 minutes, it's down 15 pips. 15 pip range movement. It's actually only down 10 pips. The range movement was 15, which means in the first 5 minutes, it went up 5 pips before it went down. And it doesn't take 5 minutes to place a trade. So if the range movement was 15, and after 5 minutes, it's down 10, that means within that 5 minutes, it also went up 5 because the range movement in total is 15. So you could have your trade prepared, and when it came in above forecast, you say, okay, history shows USD should strengthen, and it doesn't take 5 minutes to place a trade. So if it spiked up, boom, you got your entry point, and then after 4 hours, now it's down. Within that 4 hours, it went down 38 plus pips. Okay, it finished down 10 pips, but within that 4 hours, it went as far as 38.6 pip range movement. Okay, and we can look after 1 hour, it was down 20 pips. And if you caught that 5 pip spike up in the first 5 minutes, that's 25 pips profit. Okay, after 30 minutes, it was down 20 pips. After 15 minutes, it was down 20 pips. After 5 minutes, it was only down 15 pips. And within that first 5 minutes, had a spike up. So you can start to analyze the timing of how you would trade the announcement as well. What has it done in the past? And the same if it comes in below forecast and the movement is expected to go up. What did it do in the first 5 minutes? It went up less than 10 pips. After an hour, it was up 15.5. Okay, and after 4 hours, it finished up nearly 25, 26 pips up. Okay, so you see it's a gradual movement over time, and you have time to react to what the statistics show had happened in the past when it came in above forecast or below forecast. Okay, so really powerful stuff here that you don't have to look on the charts and search the past announcement times and find the old charts to see how did it move based on how the announcement came in. You can do that stuff right from here. Okay, and we can look at other announcements, pending home sales, other large-scale announcements that are ranked high or medium potential for movement. And so we see pending home sales coming in. We can check those. What effect did the home sales data have on the movements? And so we can say if it came in above forecast, looks like USD tended to strengthen slightly. And you can check other pairings. So I can say maybe USD JPY or some other pairing had stronger statistics. And so you can play around with the pairings to see which ones show the strongest reaction potentially to the news when it comes in. If this came in below forecast, looks like USD tends to weaken. Okay, not by a huge percentage. It's not like 80-20, but the trend is there that there's more upward movement than down when the home sales disappoint, when they come in below forecast. So you can start to look at these statistics on different announcements and see which ones have the strongest reaction to maybe disappointing news or better than expected news. And we can move in also to tomorrow's announcements. We've got retail sales year over year, month over month coming out of Germany. If we look year over year, Euro USD, they came in above forecast. Euro tends to strengthen 60% of the time, 3 out of 5 times. If it comes in below forecast, 100% of the time Euro weakened. So there's obviously a reaction from the markets here. There was a stronger reaction to the bad news. Retail sales came in below forecast. There's a clear reaction, 100% of the time downward movement over 41 pips after 4 hours. If they came in above forecast, okay, there's a reaction, more up than down percentage-wise, but not as strong. It's too close to 50-50 for me. So I would probably wait on this announcement. And if it comes in below forecast, I'd probably be interested in seeing if in the first 5 minutes, it's somewhere above 41 pips. So in the first 5 minutes, 2 of the 3 went up, and the one that went down less than 5 pips. So you have plenty of time after the announcement, in the first 5 minutes, to get a nice entry point if you expect it to drop like it has in the past. So if you can catch these ones that spiked up or it's down very slightly, and then after 4 hours, they've all dropped 20, 30, 40 pips, you've made a nice profit, okay? So this type of statistical analysis really can put you in the driver's seat to make informed decisions on what you'd want to do based on how these announcements have come out in the past. Okay, let me pause for a moment. Any questions on how to use this economic calendar? Anything you'd like me to go over again? Okay, I don't see any questions popping up, so I'm going to assume it was clear for everybody, but if I see something come up here in the final couple minutes, I'll address the questions. And so other areas you can look for fundamental news. If you just want to see a quick news feed, you can go in this column here, and here's the news. So you click here on news, and it'll have kind of everything put together. It might talk about the NVIDIA results. It might talk about the tariff pause. It may talk about economic announcements that already occurred today or upcoming economic announcements. It's a summary that goes over the most recent important news. and you can qualify what you want the news to be about. Here's the pre-European market brief. Here's the pre-Asian market brief, US market brief. So you can get an idea, a good summary of everything right here before maybe you jump in to look at specific stocks, for example, in the market buzz, or specific announcements that occurred or are upcoming on the calendar, etc. So this can get you a pretty good idea about the overall sentiment of the day as well for different instruments. Okay, and the instruments that are related to the news then are suggested below, down here. Okay, in this case, US 500 with the US market brief. All right, I think it's a good place to stop. We've got some nice announcements coming out today, and I would keep an eye on this whole tariff story. I'm sure the Trump administration is going to have a reaction. I already know that they plan to appeal the decision about pausing the tariffs. They're going to appeal it to the Supreme Court to try and get them to overrule this district level court that blocked the tariffs. So it'll be interesting to watch that. Certainly that won't happen in 1 day's time. The Supreme Court will try to get to it, I'm sure, expeditiously, but I doubt it would be within 1 day. So I think that positive story of the tariffs being paused may last a few days, but we'll see how long that momentum carries out. But good luck with the trading. Thank you for joining the session, and I'll be back at it next week, Wednesday evening UK time, 5 p.m. for my technical analysis session. All right, everybody, thank you for joining. Bye for now.